Hey guys, Ronnie here from Cold Blood Creations, and we're going to show you today how to set up a mice breeding colony. Now, if you're like us keeping reptiles, one of the most expensive parts of reptile keeping is the feeding. Having to go to pet shops, going to expos and buying feeder rodents. Now, as you can see behind me here, we breed some of our own rodents. We don't actually breed everything that we use, but quite a few of our rodents we do breed. And what I'm going to do is show you how to set up a mouse breeding colony. Now, some of you guys probably only have one, maybe two snakes. So just a small colony of mice breeding by yourself at home, you could save yourself a lot of money over the course of a year by not having to pay pet store prices or reptile expo prices simply by breeding your rodents at home. So that's what we're going to cover in this video. We appreciate you guys checking it out. So for a while we have been breeding rats. Now we breed rats in some pretty large tubs. If you guys can see our rat breeding tubs here, these are the larger of the two concrete mixing tubs. They actually make a smaller one, and we have those smaller tubs down here. Now this is the I'm not sure what the size of these. We buy these at Home Depot, but this is the larger of the tub, and it works really good. We're able to produce rats in these, like right here you can see, let me move this out of the way, you can see here we keep 1 male to 3 females in these big tubs. Now in the smaller tubs we tried to breed mice in these, and something we found out, well, this tub's actually empty, we fed these off today, but we tried to breed mice in these, and we quickly found out that mice just didn't do well for us in these large tubs. Now, we do breed rats, and of course you can see here, we don't have a problem breeding rats in these large tubs. But for some reason, because of the size of the tub, we found that they just didn't do well. So a friend of ours that actually works with a mouse breeding company suggested that we go to a smaller tub. He told me if we would go down to a much smaller tub, we would be far more successful at breeding our mice. And so we did that. What we decided to do was to go down to these Sterilites right here. Now this is, we ordered this off of Amazon. This is a case. Let me set this over here on our table so you can get a better look. This is Sterilite Dish Pans. These are 8-quart dish pans, and I'll take one of these out so you can get an idea of what we're working with here. This is the Sterilite Dish Pan. Let's see if the camera will focus here. This is the actual model. Now you can see this is what we're using, and once we set our mice up in these, as you can see here, they really begin to take off. We've even got some pinkies down in there that were just born today. So I'm going to show you real quick basically how we build these, how we get these set up, and hopefully here in just a few minutes you guys will be armed with the information you need to start your own mice colonies. Now you don't have to buy these in bulk like we do. We're going to set up quite a few of these. You can go to Walmart, I believe, and you can buy these right here individually. I think they're like maybe $1, $2 a piece for this size dish pan. We ordered them by the case because we plan on setting up about 40 of these tubs, but certainly you can do this just 1, maybe even 2 by buying the tubs singly from Walmart. So I'm going to show you how we do the top, and we're going to get that set up. I'm going to show you actually 2 different ways to make tops for these, and so one way we prefer over the other, but it's completely up to you. So I'll show you that here in just a moment. Okay, so one thing you're going to need to do your top for these is a 1x2. Now, these come in 8-foot sections. You buy these at Lowe's, Home Depot, either one of those stores. I don't care. They're not paying me to advertise for them. Buy them wherever you want to. but 1x2s. And then you're going to cut these down to length. Now you're going to need 2 pieces for your sides, and you're going to need 2 pieces for the front and the back. Now I'll give you a measurement real quick that fit these tubs pretty well if you choose to use the Sterilites. Your 2 side pieces are going to be 15 3/4, and your end pieces are both going to be 10 7/8. Now basically what you want to do is screw these pieces together. Now one of the things I will tell you, and I do recommend, is that you use wood glue. If you use wood glue, then you only need to put 1 screw at each corner. If however you don't use a type of wood glue, then I would definitely recommend you actually use a couple of screws at each junction. So I'm going to glue this, and then we're going to screw these together. So we're going to put our 2 pieces together like so. Take one of our screws and stick right there. Now, once again, if you're going to use wood glue, you only really need to use 1 screw. The screw will hold it together until the glue sets. However, again, if you're not planning on using wood glue on these pieces, then I would put 2 screws in on each end. So we're going to glue up this other piece here. And we're going to, and also you want to turn it, make sure it's squared up really good. And we'll do that right here. Put our piece together and put our screw in. Like so. Turn our piece around, and here again we want to make sure that we're squared up. That's the nice thing about using only 1 screw, is that you can kind of turn and manipulate this thing to make sure it's square. Okay, so now we've got our square frame. Now here's where you have a couple of options. Now one option that you have, is to put 1 piece of wire over the top and set this down like so. Now you'll see that option right here in this cage here. We have the cage sitting over the top, the screen's right here. We put a little box on the top to hold the food all together in one place, and then it just sits down right here. One thing that I will highly recommend, when you buy your wire to go over the top, you have 2 choices. You have 1/2 inch and you have 1/4 inch. What we have found is that baby mice can get out of the 1/2 inch. This is the 1/2 inch right here, and little fuzzy mice can actually squeeze through here and get out. We have found fuzzy mice actually sitting on the top of our cages. On like this one right here, you see this cage here has the larger wire compared to these right here. Now we've never had any escapes in this wire, but we have had babies to come out. So what we recommend, if you're going to do your wire in 1 piece, use the 1/4 inch wire. It's much smaller, doesn't allow escapes, and do it like this. Now the other option that you have, well, let me say this, if you use this small wire, we're just trying, kind of doing a little experiment to see if the mice can eat through the small wire when they're eating their food. So far it seems to be working okay. If you have some doubts about that, what you can do is section off your top. And by that I mean like these right here. You can actually section off your top. You put another piece of wood right here through here. You do the entire part of your cage out of 1/4 inch and then use the 1/2 inch wire here so that they're able to feed. Now, one thing we will caution you about, if you're going to set them up this way, you need to use something to lay across there, so if any hopper mice or fuzzy mice was to get out, they can't escape the tub right there. But for this video's demonstration purposes, we're going to do just the one solid piece, and we're going to put a divider in here. We're going to do the one solid piece here, and then we're going to do the feeder right here. And that way you can feed from the top and you don't have to put food directly in the cage. The other option, if you want to use this style tub, is you can actually put your feed in the tub, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it will require you to feed more frequently and your cages will get dirtier faster. But if you're only going to breed a couple pans of mice, certainly nothing wrong with that. So what we want to do here is put another piece in here as a divider so that we can have an area for feeding. Basically what I'm going to do, I just use something for a spacer so that they all are about the same size. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. You could just guess, but I'm going to put this in here like this. We're going to screw this in, and then we'll show you how to put your wire on and how to fill in your feeder trough here. So in order to cut your wire, what you're going to need is some form of wire cutting tools. Now we've got two different types right here. We've got these more scissor types and then these snips. So what we're going to do is just lay our wood down here and kind of see where we need to cut. Once I get this in and can get an idea of where we need to cut, we're just going to come along here and mark it, and then we're going to just zip right through all the way down, staying in the same place. Now, doing our cage the way we're going to do it is going to require you to buy two separate size wires, this 1/4 inch right here, as well as 1/2 inch. Now, if you don't want to do the two different size wires and you want to feed your mice inside the cage, then by all means you could just get one of these, don't put the divider in, and just cut it to size like so and put it together. You certainly can do it that way. But on this piece, what you want to do is start your 1/4 inch wire right here where your divider started, and we're going to do that by cutting the rest of this off right here. So we're going to cut it right here down the size. And also, some people recommend the use of gloves. There's certainly not anything wrong with that. I don't personally like wearing gloves when I'm working. I find gloves to be cumbersome. But if you're worried about getting stuck by this wire, and it will stick you, and sometimes it will stick you pretty good, you might want to consider gloves if you're the type that likes to work with gloves. Now, what we're going to do is get us a stapler like this and just staple this thing down every so often. And I'm going to come back here and staple my corners first in all 4 of my corners. One here, one here. Now we're going to staple down the sides, the back, the other side. We're not going to staple this yet, and I'll show you why in just a minute. So every so often we just want to come down, slap a staple in here. If you have a knot in your wood like this, you may want to avoid it. Staple off to the side, not directly on it, because knots are hard to staple into. But just work your way down like so, every so often. Like so. Now, next thing we want to do is make a larger place right here for feeding. As you can see in this cage right here, we use the small wire back here to cover the mice. We use the larger hole wire to allow them to get more easy access to their food. And we're going to do that. We're going to take a piece of this 1/2 inch wire and we're going to lay it down right here. Now you want to overlap your other wire. Make sure you've got a good overlap, and which we do right here. So now we're going to cut this piece here out of this larger wire. Okay, move that. Now, once you get this cut, chances are you probably have these little pieces like this sticking off. Something that I'm going to highly recommend to you is to nip those off so that your hands don't find them later. I would take one of your tubs and just use it to collect them. Believe me, you don't want to cut these and just let them fall on the ground, because if you come out barefooted, your feet will find them for you later. So we got all the little pieces trimmed off so that our edges now are nice and smooth. And that's important so that when you pick this thing up, you don't stab yourself with that. Now, what we're going to do is go ahead and square this up, put it on like this, and we're going to overlap our 1/4-inch wire. Now, earlier I told you not to staple down this. You see why now, because now we're going to come and staple both pieces together at the same time. And, oh, that one didn't quite do it. There we go. Get that in, get that in. Then we're going to come down and staple our side once again every so often. Same with this side. Like so. Now, finally, one other thing that you're probably going to want to do is to take a hammer and to come around on your staples and just drive them all the way down into the wood. Sometimes these things here just don't quite have enough power to slam them all the way. So what we're going to do is just go around and hammer these in. Now also, if you've got a little bit of these sticking over, you can just take your hammer and kind of beat them down like I'm doing here. Just a quick way to get rid of those so that you're not stabbing yourself with them. Same with this side. We're going to turn it around. We've got a few of those over here. We're just going to come down and tap those down like so. Now, we have got our tub. So the way this works is you fill this up with bedding. The bedding of your choice. We do not recommend using cedar. Cedar is toxic to snakes. Even though the mice can tolerate it, you don't want to use cedar because your snakes are eating your mice, and once again, cedar is toxic to snakes. Put your mice in on top of your bedding, set your cage on like so, and then this will give you a nice area to put food. Now, as far as food is concerned, we have found that mice actually breed much better using rodent chow. We use a brand of rodent chow called FRM. And this is basically the FRM brand of rodent chow that we use. So what you're going to do is just fill this trough up like so here. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and feed these while we're out here. Go ahead and fill these up like so. And then put our cover over it so no squirrels or anything get them. Now, if you choose to do this type of cage right here, once again, you have a feeding option. You can take the food like this. You can just open the cage up, place the food inside there with the mice. Certainly nothing wrong with that, although it will require more regular cage maintenance. Or you can build a little box like this to sit on top. That way you pour your food in like so, and then the mice will eat it through the wire. Now, we're not fully convinced that this is the way to go. That's the reason why we're building all our cages like this from here on out. certainly that's one way to do it. If you're worried about the cage top sliding off, then you can certainly build it like this. As you can see here, there's no way for the top to slide, whereas on this style, the top will slide around, but we found that mice are not strong enough to actually move this off. And another thing I want to share with you to breed mice on the cheap, you can get a lot of different watering systems for mice. You could buy the water bottles with a little spout. Something you can do to recycle that's also good for the environment is basically just reuse old jars. Now this is how that works. We take a ragu jar or any other jar, it could be mayonnaise. Now we prefer the metal lids, but you can use plastic. The only thing with plastic is you have to melt your hole. If you use metal jar lids like this ragu jar, take one nail right in the middle and pop a small, very small hole. Only one hole. If you put two holes, it will not work, but one hole in the center, screw it back on. Here's what happens. You fill this jar with water. When you turn it upside down, it doesn't drip. But when the mice lick it, you see what's happening there? It's allowing water to come out. This is the way you could give your mice water very, very cheaply. Any size jar will work. This is an old, I think this is an old honey jar. Now when you flip it over, it'll leak just a little bit for a minute, then it'll stop as the vacuum seals. Set it on top of your cage. That's one way to give your mice water, and also recycle some old jars you've got laying around, keeping them out of our dumpsters. So pretty much, guys, I think that's it. Listen, we're going to start doing a few of these quick tutorials here on our channel. We appreciate you guys watching. If you like this video, how about give it a thumbs up, subscribe down below, and thank you guys for watching Cold Blood Creations here on YouTube.